it has a little bar that fills up, and it usually goes live about halfway through it. So we may be live now. If we are live, welcome everyone to the Prepper Trifecta, which we may or may not have one other person show up today. But at the very least, we got the return of JJ Johnson.
Hello.
Back in the time of the coronavirus. So what have you been up to lately, man?
Man, just getting ready for this move. That's it.
Yeah.
It's been pretty much all consuming, to be honest with you.
You've got a few videos up at least, and you stay pretty active on the Patreon, which is cool.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to do that. And, I don't want folks to feel like they're getting gypped.
Right?
But
got to keep putting out I don't know if you've heard it all, but Patreon is in some legal troubles. May not be long for this world.
Really? What happened? What's the deal?
There's some class action lawsuits with I don't know if you ever heard of like Vox Day and Owen Benjamin.
Okay.
But they had Owen Benjamin specifically had a Patreon channel. He was like banned on YouTube and all this other stuff. And
right.
he then they kicked him off Patreon. So then Patreon, basically they filed a lawsuit saying that this is tortious interference, that we have basically a financial agreement between me and my sponsors that they're sending money, and you've interfered with that for bogus reasons. And then Patreon has set up that you, in their terms of service, that you have to file arbitration. And they've said that this is how it goes based on all of the California laws and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So all of his, or at least a big chunk of his supporters, filed arbitration, which Patreon is required for absorbing a big part of the fees. So like, 500 people actually, filed at once or whatever. So then they tried to sue all these people saying, oh, you can't bring a class act, or they tried to make a class action lawsuit against them saying you can't do these things, even though they're going according to their own terms of service. And they've recently got totally owned in the first court battle about that. So they're definitely going to lose the case. It's just a question of monetarily how boned they're going to get by it.
Well, it's a good thing I set up a Subscribe Star account, then I guess.
Yeah, yeah, true.
I haven't uploaded anything to it yet, but I just got my username and stuff because I didn't like Patreon from the beginning because they kicked Jordan Peterson off and all the
and that's part of the problem, and they've just been kicking people off for these vague reasons. But at the very least, I don't know if that would mean the website would go away. I think it has a fairly good cash flow. They're just bloated administrative costs and everything and all this interference, so it might just get sold to somebody or something and still exist, but who knows.
Have you heard about American Contingency?
I have not.
You watch the Fieldcraft Survival channel at all?
I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar. I honestly have not been watching a lot of YouTube or anything at all lately. I've been working so much.
So he's a former Special Forces guy. Mike Glover is his name, and he started a locals.com. That's the Dave Rubin social media outlet, whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Patreon. It's a little different. It's almost like a combination of Twitter, Patreon, and Facebook kind of thing, and where you can create your own local communities and all that kind of stuff. So he started a thing called American Contingency, and the idea behind it is that you join, you pay your $5 a month, and you get kind of added to a roster. He's got like 5 or 6 different regions, and if there's a need for people to show up to do a demonstration or to help out the police or whatever, worst case scenario, bad stuff happens or something, then it's kind of like, all the patriots know where to go and what to do and that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, and I went ahead and signed up for it because any effort made to organize the patriot and the pro law enforcement union or people and the patriots out there, that is a good thing, I think, because that's our fatal flaw as a group of people, a group of human beings. We're so independent minded. Nobody wants to follow
suspicious
anybody.
of being involved in like organization. And that's a very smart and like earned kind of position. We've seen how this stuff can go bad, how these groups can get infiltrated, how there can be crazy people, or just the resources you put in, you don't end up getting out. Like all of these are reasons why it's rough to try it, but it is necessary. And more importantly, action is necessary. Absolutely. Even if it is individual, you have to be doing. And I was just talking with someone about this today, where they were talking about, I think it was on Twitter somewhere, about ignoring like all these social justice initiatives and stuff. Like, you can't just ignore this stuff. You have to do something. Like if one side is fighting and attacking and firing people and literally shooting people and turning down statues, and you just ignore, it doesn't take a genius to find out how that ends. You know what I mean? Like there has to be action.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the way I figured it is. I don't know if he'll get this right.
Right.
I mean, he's a pretty squared away dude though. Like he strikes me as the kind of guy that if he starts something, he's going to probably follow through with it and try to do a good job, you
Yeah.
know? And but even if he doesn't, at least maybe there'll be some lessons learned from it. And then the next person to come along will, you know, get it better and all those kinds of things. So
I think it's more
yeah,
about how the members react. You know what I mean? Like when that situation arises, will they show up? You know, will they actually do what the group is intended for? So that's hopefully, because that would be
probably
great.
about 1 in 1,000.
Yeah,
Probably
3%, right? The magic number.
But he said he had 30,000 people sign up the first day he was open.
Wow.
So, you know, even and if that's the case, and he continues to get folks over there at that same rate, then even if it is 1 in 1,000, then you know here pretty soon he's going
to make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you say the website name again for that?
Yeah,
Clarity was asking.
AmericanContingency.com. I believe that's what it is. I'll double check that that's right. And then you can go over to sign up for the $5 a month thing, so you can join the communities and all that kind of stuff. You go to locals.com and then you just search American Contingency and join that community, is what you do. So there's a lot of different communities on locals.com. But
Evo Blonde says, watch me, indifferent, ignoring. Yeah, I mean, like I don't suggest that you get all worked up about this stuff, but if you just let people do whatever they want and they're hell bent on destroying your way of life and you don't do anything about it, eventually you're just going to be relegated to a smaller and smaller portion of fringe society or more rural areas until that's it. You know, you got nothing left.
Yeah. So yeah, it's AmericanContingency.com, and on their about page, it says their mission. I'll just read the mission to you. It says, our mission is to create a class of Americans that are willing to protect and defend themselves, their families, and their communities from violent actors in turbulent times. We are a proactive class that is prepared to mobilize and defend our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So,
speaking of self-defense, let's talk about things we were talking about right before the live stream about the various altercations that we've seen with these violent protests, specifically people in cars. We've talked about this before on the last few weeks of the live stream, where people have had to deal with people blocking the road. And so people who may not even be feeling strongly about one or the other side of these kind of conflicts, we've seen more and more people who just find themselves in this situation where you're driving up this crowd of people in the road or the highway or all sorts of stuff. You made a video recently with the train horn, which I think is a good, non-violent, way to let people know, like, whoa, and it's even more impactful if it's on a big, loud truck or something.
Yeah, I did. I did that because we took a trip for a week out to Indiana, taking a look, doing some recon, figuring out where we want to go and all that kind of stuff, and kind of what our criteria was for, looking for houses and everything. And our criteria is pretty restricted because we want to be out in the city and out away from the city, out in the country and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, so I didn't know if there was going to be, we got to kind of go through St. Louis unless you want to take another different route around or whatever. And because we were going to see my mother, it kind of ended up routing us through there, and they had been having some demonstrations. And so I was like, maybe if I put some of these air horns on here, and they're rated at like, they've got some of them, they're rated up to 150 decibels. The loudest I think I could find was
130 or something, 120, 130. Yeah.
And so that's considerably louder than the regular horn. And
the sound is just better too. It's beefier and more like.
Well, the horn on the regular horn's kind of buried up under in the fender area and all that kind of stuff.
And they're electric too, right? Like stock horns are mostly electric. Yeah.
Yep. And so I took the grill off and mounted 2 air horns up front, wired them into the actual original switch on the steering wheel thing. I had to bump up the fuse to a 30 amp fuse because it takes quite a little draw.
Really? You were popping fuses?
Yeah, it popped one. It's first time I tried it. I was like, oh crap. So, but yeah, it's pretty hard to stay there. Like when because I have my son honk it, and I was standing there, and I'm like, I don't want to be here. What I mean? Like, this is not good. I don't know if it'll really work as far as clearing people out, but the way I looked at it is if it gives me just a couple of second reprieve and allows me to continue moving again, if the truck was inundated or something, then to me it's worth the what did I spend on it? Like $60, I think.
Right.
Like
yeah,
that.
I mean, I wouldn't be expecting it to be used as like a literal crowd control device where people are like, but just to where people are like, whoa, you know, like that's not a normal car, and that's like surprise them and make them know like this thing might not stop.
Right, and that would be the whole thing is, you know, I'd be slow. I'm not gonna crash through a crowd, but I'm not.
You're not gonna stop. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna, you know, 10 mile per hour or 15 mile per hour through, and just you better move because I'm.
That's exactly what I recommended on our live stream. I don't think you were here for that one, but I said that's literally what I would do is if you have reason to fear for your life, which I believe you do, if these people are banging on your car, we've seen videos of them dragging people out, and now there's been a few cases of them actually shooting the people. I said, you don't have to floor it and just plow straight through the crowd, but do not stop. You know what I mean? Keep going, and the horn will help let them know that you don't intend to stop either.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, there were 3 instances that I'm aware of. There may have even been more, but there were 3 instances in shootings in these crowds.
Yeah,
and I think that is a pretty interesting indicator that this is getting more and more serious.
Right, because there was nothing like that for a while, and then all of a sudden in one day there's 2 or 3 in separate states or separate cities.
Yeah, the one close to me, we had one in Aurora, Colorado. This was yesterday, and so that was where a Jeep drove through a crowd, just like we're talking about, you know, and he didn't stop. And somebody on one side of the road pulled a gun out and was shooting at the Jeep. Well, of course, he missed, and he hit somebody on the other side of the road. Like fucking idiots. Yeah, of course. You're literally in a couple hundred people, and you're shooting into a crowd. It's just retarded. Yeah. But and then there was another one in it was the ain't fucking around crowd or something like that. I don't remember what their
that
name
big
is.
Militia, an NFA, not fucking around, I think. Like
not fucking NFA. Around or whatever they're called. Yeah. And so that dude had an accidental discharge. And I heard 2 different stories. I heard one that he hit one person. I saw another one that said he hit 3 people with one shot. So I don't know. I don't know what skill. It was. Yeah.
3-bagger. And also, just so you know, it's their negligent discharges now. It's not accidental discharge.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, because it's not an accident, it's negligence. God damn it.
Yeah. So, and then there was the other one that was in Austin, and the dude was open carrying an AK or an SKS or something. Yeah. And I guess he was interviewed, and somebody said, "Yeah, these guys are a bunch of pussies. Nobody's going to do anything." And then all of a sudden, some dude in the car comes up, and I don't know if he was pointing it at the car.
That's what I've heard, is that he at least pointed, maybe even got a shot off first or said something, and the guy in the car shot him.
Yeah.
Which you can't really be that surprised about when you're pointing guns at people.
Yeah. And then there was another one where I saw a video that the 2 dudes had pistols, right? And
they were just literally like a standoff.
They're like 2-3 feet away, sitting there pointing guns at each other, and then they ended up just going away. And
which is good, because I mean, I don't know if I have someone pointing a gun directly at me, I think at that point you almost have to.
Dude, I'd shoot him in the head.
You have to. You have to. Because what are you gonna do? You might as well put it away then. You either shoot them or put it away and say, because
don't take it out unless you intend to fire.
Right, but I mean, if you end up in that position, you need to either take them out because they're pointing a gun directly at you, and even a sneeze, they could pop it off, or you put it away and say, "Hey, I'm putting mine away." Because if you're not going to shoot them, then you're putting your life in their hands anyway. So you might as well do something to diffuse the situation. But every police station and military or any sort of training you go through, they will not just stand there with a gun pointed at them. No. You know what I mean? And not do anything. And just wait, because why are you pointing the gun at them if you're not, you know what I mean? If you're not going to shoot someone who's pointing a gun directly at your face, you might as well put the gun away. Try to diffuse the situation.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's been an interesting time.
Evil Blonde says best just to avoid the idiots, and that I 100,000% agree with. I've made some comments on here before that aside from these people that may just be driving and not knowing about the stuff going on, but like all the journalists and all the conservatives who show up there like, oh my God, look what they do. Like, why are you even there? You know what I mean? We're at that point now. We know what the situation is. We know what they're going to do. They're going to shoot you. They're going to beat you up. Like, you should just not even be there. You should be avoiding it completely. And if you have to go there, it should be you use the maximum amount of force you need to as soon as possible to eliminate any threat. That's the only 2 options. Just to be there filming it, showing how intolerant they are. Like, they don't care. We know that already. Like, just why are you there? I'm always seeing these videos and I'm like, why are these people even there?
Yeah. No, unless you're going to show up with
ready to crush it, like
yeah, unless you're going to show up with like 50 dudes and
right,
and you're deciding that you're going to counter protest or whatever. But even that, I mean, you really there needs to be a justifiable reason to do that, right?
right. I don't think protesting is even possible anymore. Like, you shouldn't go expecting to just protest. If you're going there, they're going to act violent towards you.
Exactly. There's going to be conflict.
Right.
So
there's going to be a physical conflict.
Yeah, and unless you were going to back up the police or to protect some, landmark, or I don't know, something like that maybe, but or even just neighborhoods for that matter. You might just be going to protect neighborhoods,
We've seen that. We've seen people stand outside their neighborhoods. But if that's done, it should be done knowingly that this is why you're going. And you can't be like, whoa, they threw grenades at or whatever, and then act all shocked when they attack you. Like, that doesn't mean it's right. Of course it's wrong. But we know it's going to happen. So you can't act shocked about it and just go completely unprepared.
Yeah. No.
That brings up an interesting point too, is that talking about supporting the police and stuff. Like, I've had interactions with law enforcement that have not gone well. That's not a secret. But I think it's more about supporting law and order than it is about specifically supporting the police.
Hey, I don't think even police officers support bad policemen.
Right. I mean, we hope not, at least.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, it's interesting that people talk about bad cops and all that kind of stuff, but cops go to jail every year.
Right.
It doesn't fit the narrative that the media wants to show off and talk about and all that kind of stuff. But there is regular and routine prosecutions, and not just getting fired and those kinds of things from jobs, but actually where they go to jail on a regular basis. But the media doesn't ever show that.
They don't. And honestly, there's plenty of cases where it doesn't happen, where it should. I do think that policing needs work, but like it's not one or the other. It's not like all cops are bad, all cops are saints. Just like with any other group of humans, it's a group of humans.
It's funny because everybody's talking about the defund police, right? And I have long said for a really long time that if you want to know what the answer to something is, do the opposite of what the Democratic Party says. Right? Like, that's almost always the right answer. And in this case, I believe that increasing funding for police officers, mandating that you can only work 40 hours a week, because a whole lot of cops, and I don't know if people know this, but a whole lot of cops, they make such low amount of money, they end up working a ton of overtime. So they end up working 20 or 40 hours a week overtime. And that means that they're tired. Their judgment is not as good. They're not getting enough sleep. They're going to stress out their family, and all those kinds of things. And so they're just going to be more on edge. I mean, think about it. When you work 80 hours a week, are you at your best? No. And
these are like life or death situations too.
Exactly.
And also, I think obviously accountability is a huge element of it. Like, we see people getting thrown under the bus when it doesn't suit the narrative, like in the drive-through kid, like they getting charges against the guy when they shot that guy who was sleeping in the drive-through, and then turned around and was actually firing tasers at him and stuff. And then the cover-up situations where the cops did actually act inappropriately sometimes, instead it should be the opposite. It should be it should take a high level of behavior, but then if they cross over that and do something wrong, there should be zero tolerance.
Right. No, I think there'd be a lot less of those situations in general if there were more cops, so that people didn't have to work overtime.
Yeah, but they're paid better. Caps. Yeah, exactly.
Because like a fighter pilot, right? A fighter pilot there is a certain schedule that they go on, and they cannot climb into that aircraft if they had any activity within 12 hours.
Yeah, even truck drivers. They're stricter on truck drivers than but they'll send a cop up there to deal with citizens and life or death situations with being overworked or whatever. So that's probably one element of it.
I think it's part of it anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely isn't helping.
Well, sure. And the other thing is too, cops are continually exposed to criminals, right? That's who they interact with the most often, right? And so when you're doubling and tripling the amount of exposure that you have to those things, it starts to affect
you get jaded,
your judgment on. You just think that all people are bad sometimes. Like, you get to that point where you're like, I believe it. You know what I mean? And so if you limit the amount of exposure that they have with people, then they're going to have better judgment for a longer period. If that makes sense. I don't know. It does to me anyway, but
that makes sense.
I don't know.
Part of it.
Oh, somebody asked if I was quitting prepping. No, I'm not.
I saw that.
Not
Okay.
quitting prepping. All I've done is I just basically split my channel so that all my prepping stuff is on Patreon. That's the American Prepping Academy. And my channel itself is going to go towards tool and gear reviews. And the reason for that is that it's really just trying to manipulate the YouTube algorithm, because I'm just trying to figure out how to make it all work. You know what I'm saying? Because and it's funny because once I changed the name, changed the tags, and all that kind of stuff on my channel and everything, I saw it's about a 27% increase.
Wow.
Just within a few days of that happening, in
of switching to gear and stuff as opposed to like firearms and anything semi-political.
Exactly. Instead of all the prepping keywords and all that kind of stuff. And so and I hadn't even put out like 1 or 2 more videos, or whatever since I did that. And I've
it was only a handful.
Yeah, a jump in the views and all that kind of stuff. And so it's pretty clear to me that they're holding back.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they basically said as much.
Yeah. Yep. So just Evil Blonde says, so in your new task force job, you'll leave little blonde girls alone, right? I'm harmless. It just depends on what the investigation says,
Yeah, exactly, right?
Who are you hanging out with? Who are your friends?
Right, yeah.
What are you doing?
Just how little are we talking here, right? Still thread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, evil is in her name, so
that's true. Yeah, we could say evil.
But,
and the first one too, Evil Blonde 1.
Yeah.
So how is the coronavirus situation where you're at?
Not bad.
Yeah.
There's been a slight bump here. I think I'm not sure if we've even still hit 500 in the
Let's
county,
look at the numbers
in the county that I'm in. I think the state has, but I don't think my county has yet.
Well, with the U.S. is apparently at over 4 million cases, which is wild considering what we've been talking about for the whole year, and what looks like just under 150,000 deaths.
Right.
I've seen some stuff to suggest that those counts may be inflated.
That's what I've seen some of that too, and I'm really surprised by this. I said early on that I was like, man, there's no way that you're going to get doctors and MEs to falsified, deaths or death certificates and all causes of death and everything. But then when, they're talking about paying them and getting a certain amount of, federal money and all that kind of stuff for the more deaths and whatnot. And I don't remember where it was, but I heard a story that said that a dude that died in a motorcycle crash.
That's the exact one I was going to reference, because that one was basically confirmed, where they were like, sorry, he did. And then another one that's confirmed, that was in Florida, which I'm from Florida, so I see this stuff in the news from like friends and stuff. There's another in Florida specifically, I think it was, where they accidentally reported like these rates of positivity, like that were 10 to 100 times higher than real. They were like, 93% of our cases, our tests came back positive after they looked at the numbers. And they're like, oh, sorry, that should have been 9% instead of 9. And you're like,
what?
Really? You're like, that's quite a mistake.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And that was like legit. Like these things did happen. This wasn't like a conspiracy. The only conspiracy would be whether that was on purpose or legit just incompetence. Right. But at the very least, these things are happening to some extent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's pretty crazy to me. I mean, who knows, man? I don't know. Maybe money's just more of a motivator than what I thought, or I don't know. It's very strange to me. When I look around and when I go out and all that kind of stuff, I don't really see. I mean, I see people wearing masks and everything, obviously, but life really hasn't changed much. Maybe I live in a real insulated area. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's here in Cheyenne. It's pretty. People are pretty independent and kind of like, I don't give a crap.
That's good.
But I mean, even if what are they saying now that the death rate is up to what, 3.5 times higher than the flu death?
Which is nothing though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's really
when
not
we were
that
looking
bad.
at the numbers earlier in the year, some of the data suggested this might be 40 to 80 times more death.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, at least
that's
13 to 15. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Somewhere like that. And the hospitalization rate up to 80 times higher. So, like that would be pretty serious if you had 4 million cases. You know what I mean? But with the rates that we're actually seeing on the ground with widespread testing in the US, like it's just not worth it for all this stuff. And when you factor in the way that they implement these rules, like if you could just have a genie snap and everyone had a mask affixed to their face, you know, for the majority of the day, that would probably make a difference. But when all these rules like, oh, the homeless don't have to wear them. You can wear them when you're walking in the restaurant, but when you're sitting at the table, you don't have to wear them. It doesn't matter what the mask is made out of or how often you touch it, or
if you're protesting, you don't have
or if
to,
you're protesting,
you know.
you don't. But if you're at a church, you do. And it's like, is it really effective at all in these situations? I seriously doubt it.
Yeah.
You know what was weird to me? And I was just mentioning this to my girlfriend, is that early on they were like, you just wash your hands, the mask doesn't matter, just everyone wash your hands. Like I haven't heard anyone say anything about washing your hands for like an entire month. Like that whole canard just basically completely disappeared. Like now it doesn't matter if you wash your hands. You can like pick your nose and scratch your butt and then use the keypad at the fucking supermarket. But as long as you got your mask on, which they originally said may make it worse, you don't even have to wash your hands anymore. Good news.
I think the keypads at the grocery stores crack me.
Because it was funny because you're like, I walked into the UPS store.
You put the plastic over it, and I'm like, is that doing anything except holding more germs?
Right. I walked back to the UPS store to like mail some stuff, and they had like the big shields, they had signs saying you have to wear masks. And then I'm like using the keypad and grabbing a pen, and I'm just like, man, every crusty juggler that's come in this place has touched all these things. And like, just because we have a Chinese cloth mask, we're supposed to be okay.
You go through a drive-through somewhere or whatever, and this dude's been working for 6 hours handling
same
money.
Gloves on.
He's got gloves on, and then he hands you your change, and he's like,
right. Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, well, then because they have a tray too. Like you put your card in a tray, and then they grab it out of the tray with the same gloved hand, put it back. Like you couldn't just take the card from me with the same sticky glove you have on.
Or
like,
maybe not wear the glove and just wash your hands every, like 25, 30 minutes or something. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Ridiculous. It's silly. So what do you think about the lead up to the election and what's going to happen at the election and all that?
I mean, it could get wild. We're under 100 days now, right? Or right at about 100 days?
Right about 100 days, yeah.
Which is wild. But, I mean, we'll see all sorts of crazy stuff. I've been talking with JJ and Janab on the channel here before. I've talked about how I really, they have all the, you don't see people comment about how, oh, Trump's in a slump or this and that. I really, really doubt that there's any significant group of people that just haven't made up their mind whether they support Trump or Biden. There's too much of a divide. There's too much of a difference. The only question is turnout. Like no one's like Trump, Biden, like really, like I can't make up my mind between these two completely different people. Right. You know what I mean? Like they could not be more like the parties right now, the people, like you're really not going to be jumping back and forth. The only question is like, are you going to bother to go vote for the person you already know? And another person, I don't remember who it was, writing online, was talking about how, like, we know that the polls were bad for the 2016 election, obviously, that was proven. Yeah. And because people didn't want to admit that they voted, that they were going to vote for Trump and whatnot. Like, is it any, like, now people would get made fun of back then. People are getting, like, shot and beaten now for, like, supporting Trump. You think they're going to be, it's going to be even worse, we're less likely to say that they're supporting him. And Trump, I mean, like, not Trump, Biden is, like, literally, and I think it's Mike Cernovich said, like, you would be, if this was your grandpa, you'd be arguing about, like, whether you should take his car keys, like, legitimately. And you're talking about, like, making him leader of the country. Like, I think they're going to really try hard to not have any debates. They're going to say, coronavirus, the coronavirus reasons. Like, it would just be, I mean, that will hurt their campaign. But it would hurt them a lot worse to get up on a stage with them and like literally, he might fall out, you know. So.
Yeah, I mean, and all Trump's got to do is tool him once or twice. And,
yeah, exactly.
You know,
they'll be like, God damn.
You know he's gonna puff up his chest. But you want to do push-ups?
Right, exactly.
Let's do some push-ups.
And everyone will be like, what the fuck? and Biden will start talking all those sorts of crazy. He'll probably be able to get them to like just talk, like say something completely opposite to what his campaign has already said and things like that. So it could be wild. I really hope they do have the debates because that'll be like pay-per-view worthy. But
interesting.
The point is, even in that situation where he embarrasses himself, like none of those people are going to go vote for Trump. You know what I mean? They're just going to be like, God damn, whatever. Like it's over. They're just not going to vote. So for me, turnout is the big issue.
I think the turnout is going to be. I think the turnout is probably going to be the lowest on the Democratic side.
I think so too, especially in the states that matter for this election, which are the Pennsylvanias, the Wisconsins, the Florida, you know what I mean?
Virginia,
Like,
you know, all those.
Right. The blue collar liberal states, like these people who are like union auto workers or whatever, who have been lifelong Democrats, but they're not actually that liberal, especially not by today's standards. When they're having to like worry about running over protesters or getting dragged from their cars, and are they going to really vote for Biden? You know,
Right.
I don't think so.
Well, and I guess a lot of it kind of does depend on who the VP pick is, because that's who they're really voting for. Because
Right.
I mean, I'm guessing that within 90 days after the inauguration, if Biden did win,
He'll fall out.
the
or
VP,
or they'll just lock him in a basement, prop him up for a few speeches here and there, and be like, "All right, they're there. We're running."
I think
the country
honestly,
now.
I think they'll actually, he'll even resign, or they'll use the, what is it, 26th Amendment.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could totally see that happening. So that's coming up here pretty soon. I think the Democratic convention, where they have to announce who it's going to be, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the date is. I've heard Susan Rice or Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris would be hilarious. I think it's going to be her, honestly. But they have her like all the
Really?
plastic surgery to make her look better and everything. She looked like ghoulish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you haven't
I didn't
seen
know
that? Yeah, so that would be my
No.
guess, is that they were like trying for that.
And now,
But-
see, that's interesting, because honestly, I think that's a huge, just, they're going to lose hard.
Oh,
if
for
they
sure.
do
That'd
that.
be a horrible choice. The only ones that would like maybe significantly help them would be like a Michelle Obama or something.
I think Michelle
You know
would
what I
win.
mean?
I think
You
she
think-
would win.
That's what somebody was saying to me, and I honestly
do.
don't think so, because like the same thing, like all these people who are Trump voters, like it would help with turnout on the Democratic side, but it
Exactly.
wouldn't get anyone to cross over.
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't think it would get anybody to cross over. I mean, maybe some of the Oprah watchers that, you know, but that are turned off.
Right, but it would
stuff
just
like
be a
that,
question of whether they would go from not voting to voting, but they wouldn't go
Yeah.
from like, I was going to vote for Trump, but now that they got Michelle Obama, you know,
Right.
why
Yeah.
not? You know, they still
I
would
just-
think like, I'm worried about being able to get to work without getting fire bombs thrown at me, or you know what I mean? So
Yep. Well, if you think about all the rhetoric that has spewed out of her mouth, I mean, she fits the tone of the moment so well.
which one?
Michelle.
Oh yeah.
She fits it all so well.
I just don't even know if they want part of it though. From what I've seen from the Obamas, like they were reluctant to even like, what's the word? To support the Biden campaign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Obama wouldn't even come out and endorse. That's what the word is. Endorse Biden, really, at least at first.
Yeah,
So
I mean, because I mean, there's probably all kinds of reasons for that, but I don't know. I think his Organizing for America has been pretty active in the backgrounds of all the stuff that's going on and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. What about, we got a question here from Andrea. Mail-ins,
yeah.
mail-in ballots. Can you trust them?
Well, I will just say I don't think there's a single thing that is government run or even has government involvement that I would 100% trust, regardless of which party has their grubby fingers on it. You know?
Yeah. No.
I don't trust it, but do I think it's significantly worse than any other voting shenanigans? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, can you trust anything that's electronic or goes online at this point?
Or any people like some locally elected or not elected old lady counting paper ballots by hand? I don't trust that either. You know.
So let's say Biden wins. What do you think happens within 6 months from then?
Wow. I mean, I think it's funny because Gregory Mannarino, I don't know if you watch his videos. He's got great stuff. He recently made a video where he said, which kind of surprised me, that he was convinced that the stock market would go way up if Biden won.
Really?
And yeah, which I was like, because my instinct is that at least just because of the perceived Fed action after that it would just have to be printing money, which I was like, you know what, that does make sense. I do think that within the first few days of his election, it would tank. And then maybe it would rocket up with the knowledge that like, well, they're obviously just going to go full bore money printing.
Yeah.
Which we might see the opposite with
I don't
Trump,
even think
where they're
they've
like,
caught
oh,
up.
it's sick. Yeah, well, it'll spike initially after he gets reelected, but then be like, start looking at the situation, the unemployment, and from all the coronavirus stuff, and be like, wow, this is really not that good. And then it can start doing terribly after that. But it depends, because like the stock market isn't a good representation of it's not a price discovery mechanism anymore. You know what I mean? It's all just based on if there's going to be Fed printing, it's going to pump up the numbers, not because it's really worth it, but because they know there's money going in the system. So who knows? But tumultuousness would be guaranteed.
For sure.
Volatility in the markets. At least.
What do you think about them expanding the Supreme Court?
I think I don't like the idea of it. I think it would just be used by either group to jam the numbers on a short-term basis. You know what I mean?
But
So,
it
but
would
it has
be,
been
if
expanded
they
several
got the House,
times.
if they got the House and the Senate.
Well, I think they would try all
President,
sorts of crazy stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
it'd be a nightmare if.
Yeah, I do
so-
too. I do too. I think that roughly, 90 days or so after the inauguration and the new VP is put in place, there would be a strong rally call to get their agenda done.
Yeah, they would just ram stuff through if they can.
Yeah, it would be probably the next 3 months would just be
For gun
boom,
control,
boom,
for
boom,
everything.
boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, down the line, all their socialist agendas. And then at that point, I think that's when we would see the right finally go, no. you're not doing
Hopefully.
it." You know what I
We'll
mean?
see. Yeah.
But now what happens if Trump wins? What do you think?
I think it's pretty much more the same, but only for the next 4 years. I think then we would just be stuck dealing with the
Really? So you don't see a
economic-
difference in the intensity?
of who? Of the left?
If Trump wins, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they would spaz out, but it would be more like the riot type situation, not as much of the government, because they wouldn't be able to ram their stuff through like if Biden wins. But I definitely think they would go crazy. I think they're going to go crazy either way. I think it's a victory riots versus you know what I mean, like when the sports team, like somebody's going to go nuts after they're either going to go nuts because they're like, yay, we win, we get to do whatever we want to now, or can't believe you won and all this other stuff. So
I think between the election and the inauguration would be chaos.
Yeah,
The whole
I think so.
way through. I mean,
I think so. I don't think gun sales will slow down. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be really, really bad. Yeah,
I think it will be. I still expect him to win at this point, Trump. So
I do too.
I think it will be gnarly.
What about the coin shortage? You know much about that?
I've heard about it. From what I can see, it may actually be semi-organic. I mean, we know that they would love to do cashless systems for a lot of different reasons. I think this would be a really kind of tepid and backdoor way of doing it because most Americans barely use cash as it is and certainly don't use coins. So I really feel, to me it feels, and I've heard stories or reports of banks actually paying slightly above market value or like face value for coins just to get it back in the system. So to me, it feels like it's temporary and sporadic, maybe organic kind of shortage due to what I've heard is just staffing issues and shutdowns at the mints from coronavirus. Certainly possible.
Yeah. I hadn't really looked into it. I've seen it. I've seen some signs and some businesses that are saying, we don't have any coins or whatever, so you have to do card transactions and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't looked into the cause at all, so I'm not really.
That's what I've heard. That's the surface explanation is that just shutdowns and stuff, the mint staff requirements and stuff, they haven't been able to make as many. So
could be. Could be. You guys got any questions for us?
Yeah, throw them in the chat.
Yeah, throw them in the chat. We'll try to get them. So I'll go back up and see if I missed some.
Yeah, if you put it in all caps, it's easier to see it, or make a super chat. Because you actually have to pay for the I couldn't get it to work at first with Zoom, so you have to pay for an account to be able to do the live streaming. But it's only like $15.
Yeah.
Coinstar stopped sorting. Let's talk about prepping. Says that's interesting. Yeah, they always are trying to round up at the register too to donate to some sick children or something. I was like, would you like to round up your purchase? And I'm like, no. Would you like to round down your purchase if I promise to donate
can
it?
we round down instead?
Yeah. Why don't you donate it? Round down and you donate it, jerks.
That's funny.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
Yeah. I'm pretty stoked about starting a new homestead.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I was just gonna ask you how what do you think I guess you've scoped out the areas you're going to be in terms of terrain and stuff like that. Is more wooded area, or how deep in the sticks do you plan on being, if at all?
I did a lesson over on Patreon on it, just talking about kind of all my criteria and different things like that, things to look for and all that jazz. But basically, I want to be at least 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes outside the metro area, and then I want to be roughly 15 to 20 minutes outside of a satellite city. A small little city that's got some infrastructure and stuff that could kind of, I can go to when I need to go to a hardware store or whatever. And then, I want to be on want to be on like a tertiary road. I don't want to be
Right.
on a main
Not a main road, yeah.
You know, little things like that.
Little stuff makes a difference, yeah.
And then I also want to be in a place where people take care of their stuff, where they take care of their homesteads and their houses and farms, and you know, they mow their grass and they don't have cars laying around, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Because just pride of ownership really says a lot about, you know, just how you'll react and what your thought processes are, and I don't know, all that. So
here we have a question. What is your next gun purchase in the near future? Man, there's always so many on my list.
Dude, I don't have any on my list right now, because because when guns were cheap, I was buying them like freaking.
That's
left
true.
and right.
They're expensive as hell right now.
Yeah,
and ammo, the ammo, it's like 50 cents for brass case 223 right now, or 556. I'm like,
I got a whole trailer load of ammo that we're having to move. I mean,
yeah, I've got a lot, but I mean, every time I go out there to shoot, I'm like, wow, we have a range day or whatever in the desert, and I'm like, that was like $100 worth of ammo. Like, God damn it.
Yeah,
but I am looking at. I still don't have an AK. I have an SKS, so I wouldn't mind getting an AK. I need a revolver. I don't have any revolvers, so those are high on my list.
I mean, I have a what is it? The M&P, the Smith & Wesson.
That's what I want. The R8
M2.0 core. That's the optics ready in the M2.0. So
is that the R8 that has the 8-round 357?
No. What are you talking
about?
That's
the R8. It's like an 8-round 357.
Oh, like a revolver?
Yeah.
Oh no, this is it's like a Glock. It's a spring.
The
fired, you know, semi-automatic and all that. Yeah, but they haven't for the longest time. They weren't making a optics ready version, and so I'd like to try an optic on a pistol. I've never had one, and so I thought that's kind of the line that I have. I've got like almost all the pistols in the line. So if I do buy another pistol, it'd probably be that one.
Like a kind of like competition style, open sights or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Here we go. What else? Some other questions.
Oh, some people are asking about the vaccine.
Oh yeah, I saw that. What do you think Trump will protect our Second Amendment rights? Sort of. I don't agree with the bump stock, the bump stock concession. I don't think any concessions are serving any purpose. So in general, yes, but what do you say to the folks that are worried about the forced vaccinations? I don't necessarily know if there'll be widespread, like kick down your door forced vaccinations. There might be some that would cost you your job in certain fields, especially.
I think it depends on. I think it depends on who wins the election, because the vaccine won't be out till after the election.
Well, also if Trump wins, you won't. Or I think regardless of who wins, you're not going to hear much about this disease after November 4th. You know what I mean?
Really? See, now that's interesting. I had a little bit of different take on it. If Trump wins, it's going to be COVID is terrible and it's the fucking
That's true. That's true. But if he loses, it'll disappear.
If he loses, it'll disappear. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they'll keep pushing it and like, oh, look at all these people that you're allowing to die if he wins. But will you take the vaccine? I don't plan on it.
I mean, here's my thing on vaccines is that it's undeniable that vaccines work to get herd immunity. Okay, that if you don't understand that and you don't believe that, you need to go to therapy. Okay. If you choose not to take it, or you have a religious reason not to take it, or you just don't want to put stuff in your body that you don't know what it is, I get that. But if you can't acknowledge that the science works, then you're a quack.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my arguments about it have always been, first of all, to say vaccines is only slightly more restrictive than saying medicine. You know what I mean? Right. Like you're barely narrowing it down at all. And then at that point, you have like, just because you admit or acknowledge that vaccine technology is amazing, it's cured all sorts of disease, doesn't mean that I'm going to rush out to get some vaccine that was rushed through production by companies that you're not allowed to sue. You know what I mean? When they hide the adverse reaction data and all that, like those are completely different things. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
I 100% agree with that. And I think that, forcing infants to get a high amount of vaccine.
Yeah, like the schedule, like
short specified time is stupid.
Right. And like these days, people act like you doing something as simple as criticizing this vaccine schedule for infants is like you're a witch doctor who wants to like, oh, if I shine their asshole in moonlight, that'll cure their disease or something. You know what I mean? And you're like, these are like, I'm just saying that not even all the Western countries agree with these vaccine schedules. Right. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm not a pro-vaxxer at all. I think that with kids, it makes sense to space it out. You know, I mean, because they only need to have all their vaccinations by the time they're 6, right? By
Yeah,
the time
some,
they're
I honestly believe that some are unnecessary too, depending, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are just not
Right.
necessary.
Yep.
And some, like, I seriously doubt that there's any insane risk from like the MMR vaccines and stuff they've been doing for, like, yeah, could you probably do it maybe a little older, maybe not in conjunction with all these other vaccines, stuff like that. But
yeah. So for me, the bottom line is will I take the vaccine? Maybe a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years.
yeah, once you see how
everybody else does.
Yeah, like I'm not going to buy the first year of the Bronco either. You know what I mean? Let's let them shake out the bugs first.
I might be in the line, but I'm going to be way at the back of the line.
In general, for stuff like the flu vaccines, it's going to be the same. I mean, it's the same sort of similar type of virus in that there's always a chance for mutations where you're not going to get every strain, where getting the virus is relatively low risk for someone like myself anyway. So even if you did the math, you determine like, well, if I'm not vaccinated, I have a 0.03% chance of dying. But if I am vaccinated, I have a 0.02% chance of something bad happening. So you should get the vaccine. Like, I don't care about that shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm probably not going to get it because I don't trust them. I'm not worried about the virus. So like, who cares?
When in history have we ever worried about a situation that has a 99.3 years whatever percent survival rate?
Right. I mean, that's what's so bizarre is that, like, you can look at the survival rate of just like obesity, of someone being like morbidly obese and what their chances are of dying from that. You don't see anywhere near like the zeal and the fervor about fixing that problem, even though it's killing literally millions of people every year. Yeah. And so, but one person's like, you know what? I don't think I need to wear a mask for something that has a 0.03% chance of actually killing me. Like,
or texting and driving. I mean,
yeah,
that's
all sorts
another
of
one
stuff.
that is just terrible. I mean, or this vaping.
Right. Yeah, exploding. And I look like Phantom of the Opera because of your juice vape or whatever. And you're like,
there just definitely seems to be a lot of crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, humans in general, and I've made videos about this in the past, I think, are just really terrible at evaluating risk. So anything that they feel like you have some sort of control over, like driving, even though driving is really dangerous, you feel like I am making decisions here that can avoid the danger. So they don't really evaluate that the same as something that can just happen to them and they have no control over it. That feels a lot scarier, even though if you just look at the data, it's way less of an actual risk. And especially if you look at individuals, you know, like if we're looking at population level data here, that includes the old people, that includes the morbidly obese, that includes everything. So if like you evaluate yourself and you're like, yeah, I bench press, I'm not going to die from this fucking virus. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? And so those are people who don't know, bench pressing kills the virus. If you can hit 1.5 times your body weight, it crushes it between the muscles. It's science, pure science. You can look it up.
Just look it up.
Just look it up. Google it. Totally I don't have time to explain this to you. It's science. All right, just look it up.
I saw a study.
Consensus. It's consensus. Scientific consensus. It's crushed between the muscles, and
it's what the other one that gets me too is medical malpractice.
Oh.
Medical malpractice.
It's like 600,000 people a year or something like that.
Well, yeah, I think it's like 250,000 at least.
Whatever. It's hundreds of thousands of people.
It's tons and tons of people.
It's medical mistakes. You know, like dosages of wrong medication, allergic reactions, surgical mistakes. Like you're like, holy fuck! Like going to a doctor is like the most dangerous thing.
Seriously
you can do.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That one they don't like talking about.
No.
Desolator Magic says, Lord among us, do you think they should auction off the first round of vaccines so rich people by their own choice pay the most and use the funds to repay the government for the stimulus checks? I mean, that would be interesting. And that's kind of how it works with any new technology. Like the people who are rich and interested, they end up taking the brunt of the R&D cost by paying for these things when they're new and expensive. And then as it gets cheaper and cheaper, more and more people adopt it. But that's not how it's going to work because this stuff is government backed. You know, it'll be different, almost laws based about it.
Military and healthcare workers will get it first, and frontline people and all that kind of stuff.
And like I just mentioned earlier, a lot of these companies are legally shielded from any sort of lawsuits and everything, so they can just push this stuff out and not have. That's kind of a big part of R&D costs would be like, hey, we can't rush this thing out because if it goes haywire, then. We're going to be on the hook for it.
There's some evidence that the other SARS virus, SARS-1, the reason they still don't have vaccines for that is because of the cytokine storms and
Right.
all that.
Like
on
an
the infection.
immunopathology that happens where
Mhm.
like introducing the vaccine actually causes your body to spaz out, basically, for lack of a technical term.
That's
And
I think that's actually the
overreact to
accurate
it.
term,
It's industry term.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I don't
See what
know.
else we got. Any questions? All right. Sedition detected. Mask up now. Subject. Yeah, we get Ed 209 out there, but you have 30 seconds to comply. How do you feel about the mask mandates? And
Well,
what would be your personal stance on like adhering to them?
Well, it's completely unconstitutional for the federal government to say you have to wear a mask.
Sure. Most of these are from the governor level or state level.
Yeah, from the governor or state level, I think you'd have to look at the state constitutions and then the public health laws and the precedents that were set and all that kind of stuff to determine whether or not they can actually do that or not. My basic feeling and as a general consensus on all the kind of the whole situation is that government officials have a clear legal authority to quarantine sick people, right? So if you have a disease, the government can tell you have to stay home until X number of days after you're, clear or whatever. I don't think there's really any controversy about that. I don't think there's really any precedent for saying you have to wear protective equipment,
right,
because of a viral outbreak or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's certainly not been any that I'm aware of with even bad flu years and all that kind of stuff. There's
Right.
never been this.
That's a good correlation because even though it's not just the flu, like we're at that level with when the data is coming in that it's comparable, at least in risk. It's only several times as worse, not orders of magnitude worse. So like, why wouldn't you, under this logic, have people who are testing positive for the flu stay home, under quarantine?
Yeah. I mean, I think a more measured response is obviously going to be to protect the people who are most vulnerable because, if you're 70 years old or older, you got a way higher chance of getting really, really sick from this. And so, mandating some nursing home rules and those kinds of things, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But telling people who are healthy and people in the general population that you have to do certain things is not something that I believe is within their scope of authority.
I agree.
So
we have mandatory masks here in Nevada. It's when you're in public, there's all sorts of exemptions that you can claim if you want to really get around it, which I completely ignore it when I'm in basically just in public. When it comes down to the businesses, like there's a lot of people out there who will say like, oh, you're a slave if you do this or do that. I'm like, I get it. It's stupid. I don't agree with the rules, but to make it, you don't want to be like Karening these businesses. I mean, like, I'm a First Amendment right. You have to, if you think that you shouldn't ever have to wear it and it's some infringement on your freedoms, it's illegal, whatever, then don't do it. And if you're free enough with your self-sufficiency that you don't have to patronize these businesses, that's great. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I need to go to the store, don't give them a hard time about it. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. They say you have to have a mask to shop here, either don't shop there or wear the fucking mask. I don't look at it any differently as when I'm renting a jet ski and they make you wear a life preserver. That's stupid. I don't need it. I'm a very strong swimmer. I'm not going to die. Like I said, I bench press. You're gonna make it. But like,
bench pressing also makes you float too.
It does. Yeah. The muscle fibers. It's science again. You got to just look it up. But like, I'm not going to give them a hard time about this. You know what I mean? Like, it's their rules for security or insurance reasons. Like, we know that. Like, why would I go read them the riot act about this thing that I know I don't need? And I'm not going to say like, oh, it's an infringement on my freedom. I just wouldn't go. And if you have set yourself up to that, and if you really want to make that a hill to die on, then you need to make yourself self-sufficient. That's one of the reasons we've been preaching this stuff for years. So you can do that in the situations that really require it. As of now, I just get a mask. I have a mask. It's barely a mask. It's just like basically mesh. It meets the requirement of the law of having a covering of your nose and mouth. I don't wear it anytime unless the businesses ask me to and say you have to.
It's like Windows screen. You got
Windows screen. It's literally like a pantyhose. One guy was like, I can see your face. I was like, okay. He's like, is that thing clear? And I'm like, sort of. But I'll usually not wear one until they say something, I'm like, hey, you have to leave, you don't have one. Or if it's a place I know they're going to make an issue about it, I'll just put it on. But I don't wear it in any other situation when I'm not patronizing the business. So that's my stance on it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. The way I kind of go about it is, if I'm not going to be within close proximity of somebody for several minutes, then I'm, as a general rule, not going to wear it.
Yeah, like
right?
there's people driving around with it, or we've seen people hiking
You're
with it
alone
on.
in your
I'm like,
car
what
with
the
your
fuck?
mask on.
Yeah, I'm like, you dork.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Did you see
Terrible.
Did you see the dude in the coffee shop that had the mask on and
I think it was like at Chipotle, and he was like,
yeah.
and then he was up against the wall, like. I think I just would have. I have like an urge to just like go at like a sick wildebeest in the back of the herd, like I just want to maul them. Just like, why are you so weak? And just like rock their body with big nasty hooks. Like, this is what you should be afraid of, motherfucker.
I swear to God, that
so
video had to be fake.
It had to be fake. It had to be.
It had to be.
That guy was like a performance artist or something.
Yeah, nobody could be that.
I mean, unless he's like a monk type, like he has a legit mental illness or something, which is possible.
And that could be, yeah.
That could be. So. But it was funny. Yeah, it was pretty hilarious.
So South Florida DCL says, is all this real? Yeah, it's real. It's not to the level of what the media is portraying it, though. You know, that it is
That's
a real
what you
thing.
mean unreal. Yeah, like I do think that there is an actual virus out there. I think it's just a way overblown reaction to it. It's being used by different parties for political reasons. Other people are just overreacting for fear or whatever. So it's a perfect storm of craziness, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it totally is. It's being totally overblown in the media, and it's definitely being used as a political tool to hurt Trump. Right. So if the governors, I believe, are under this impression that if they can make life miserable for everybody, that they can transfer that misery and say it's Trump's fault, and that people will buy that. And so that is why especially the Democratic states, even worse so, are we're gonna have to go back into a second shutdown. Mandatory masks everywhere. You got to do this. You got to do that. They're basically. I think it's going to be completely ramped up all the way till the election.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to get more. If 2016 is any indication, they're just going to get more and more insane in all respects.
Yep.
Until then,
it's going to be nuts. So yeah. So what's the other question?
Well, here in the meantime, I got do you have any memes? I've only got 2.
No, I came unprepared. I jumped in last
It's all good. Yeah, I'm glad you could make it. But I'm gonna go ahead and share the see what I've got. Nothing crazy. Oops, I messed it up. I fell into the same trap that you did. I wasn't authorizing sharing for all the other live streams. So
it's easy to forget.
Shay was always getting mad at me.
Firehawk, Colorado. I am still moving to Indianapolis. I just have not got my orders yet.
Here's one. It says, when people with physical health issues are vulnerable to coronavirus, but you only have mental health issues. And then I don't know if you've heard about this one. This has been all over Twitter and everything. The Wayfair thing. Have you seen anything about that?
No, I deleted my Facebook and Twitter accounts totally.
Okay, well, there's some weird shit going on about like Wayfair possibly using people using Wayfair to make listings to pay for like child trafficking or some bizarre shit. Yeah, it was really weird. And there were like $10,000 desks, which are the same like strange names as like missing kids. Anyways, you should look into it. But here's the meme, which is me popping out of the $20,000 trunk I bought on Wayfair, or I put on Wayfair, and getting the drop on a Hollywood pedo pizza party. And then here I have a screenshot of that case from the Florida motorcycle guy a man who died in Orlando motorcycle crash was counted as a COVID-19 death in Florida. So this is a Fox 35 Orlando news report. This wasn't like one of these conspiracy things. Like this did actually happen.
That is unbelievable, man. I just that's embarrassing for.
It is. I mean, it shows you that this stuff is happening. So that's regardless. We know the numbers are not correct, regardless of how incorrect they are or for what reasons they're incorrect, whether it's purposeful or incompetence. They always, the saying goes, don't attribute to malice what can be explained with incompetence. But, either way, they're bogus. It's also anytime you see the otherwise health, I swear every time they're like an otherwise healthy 35-year-old dies of coronavirus. You click on it, some ham planet who's like 500 pounds. They're like otherwise healthy. They're like, this guy's got cottage cheese for blood. Like, you're telling me otherwise healthy? Give me a break.
Yeah, no, obesity is one of the biggest.
Yeah, it makes you like, it's like a
leading
90%
contributors to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
huge risk
Yeah, I think
factor.
they said a BMI over 35, if I'm not mistaken, is like you're way high on the list of
like
of
multiple
potentially
times
being
more
infected.
likely to
Yeah.
get hospitalized and or die from it. Like, come on.
Right.
Otherwise healthy.
Yeah.
So, you got anything else to put out? It's getting to be that time. Honestly, went by
No,
fast.
I can't think of anything. All I would encourage people to do is get your shit squared away before the election. And if you can move, you can get out into a rural area, you should do that. That's my advice to you. That's it. And join the American
And join,
on
Patreon. On Patreon, naturally. And of course, obviously, if you want to defend yourself against coronavirus, you have to buy the Rule the Wasteland Survival Fishing Kit.
Oh, did you get more in stock?
Yeah, I actually am pretty good stocked up now. The shipping stuff's been a lot better. So I'm fully stocked. If you want to go on rulethewasteland.com or on Amazon, pretty good stuff.
It's a good little fishing kit, man. You sent me one. I did a little video on it, and it's a good kit. So
I tried to stay away from the gimmick stuff. It's just basic fishing equipment. You know, nothing that's going to blow your mind. Honestly, I've told that people have said like, "Oh, I'm a fisherman. I don't know." If you're a legit avid fisherman, you fish all the time. You have all this stuff. You don't need to buy this. You know what I mean? You can make this from your tackle box and put in a little tin. This is made for the people, because I've had this happen to me, where you have some fishing kit, some stuff maybe, or maybe none at all. I wanted to make a survival fishing kit, and to buy one of these, one of those would have been prohibitively expensive, because you have to buy packs of everything. So I put this together. So because I'm trying to make one for myself.
It's a great thing to throw in like a little get home bag or a bug out bag or whatever. I mean, it's just super easy. It's like done.
Right. But if you go fishing every weekend, you don't need to buy this. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to convince those people. You have all this stuff. Put yourself together a little tin, put it in your bug out bag. But for everyone else, it's a good way to get it without having to buy all that stuff individually. So. And find out what fits. That's what took the longest time for me, was finding out which things I could get that were sized right and how many of each to actually fit in this tin, which is only a little 2 ounces.
And you got, I mean, hooks are really the most important thing, right?
Because you get hooks and line. You can improvise a lot of the other stuff. The
Right.
hooks and the line is the hardest part, so that's why I try to focus on. You got 30.
And if I remember right, you had like 30
plus 31, I think, if you count the
hooks,
treble hooks and the round head jig that I have in there, and then like 80 meters of fishing lines.
Right.
2 different weights. So, yeah, it's cool. I think it's decent.
Yeah.
I originally made it for myself anyway, so.
Right. No, I thought it was good.
Cool. And the Kill Those shirts.
Oh yeah.
That's what, having you on, you invented the trifecta, but it is on my channel. So I appreciate you. I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I get settled in the new place and all that kind of stuff, we can, if you want to keep posting it, you can, or we can bring it back over.
We'll go back and forth, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. We can flip it around. Doesn't matter to me. So
appreciate you guys watching. Check out JJ's channel on Patreon, and what is it called now on YouTube? It's Reality Survival and Prepping Gear Reviews.
So it's RSP Tool and Gear Reviews, and I think if you put in Reality Survival, it'll still pop up. Probably.
Right. I saw your the new logo and everything, and I was like, I don't remember, what channel is this? Like, must be some channel I subscribed to a long time ago and don't remember. And I'm like, oh, it's JJ's. I was like,
yeah, my man Renaissance Marine actually hooked me up with that little logo.
Cool,
if you guys aren't subscribed to the Renaissance Marine channel, you should go do that. He's got a great channel. He's down there in Florida, and he does all kinds of different little reviews and prepping and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so he's a great dude. So give him a shout too.
Appreciate you guys watching, guys. We're gonna sign out. See you later.